Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 165. And that's show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. So we go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week and everything in between. So let's get started. I had 20 books this week, so it's kind of an average week. Last week, I'm sorry that I did not have Comic Uno episode. I had New York Comic Con. I'm actually still a little sick after New York Comic Con. Maybe hear me cough or something. But my voice is pretty back. But yeah, let's get started. We're going to 20 to best pick of the week. So what was worst pick of the week? Sadly, this was a book that was in my most anticipated list because it's one of my favorite comics pretty much all time. But I was disappointed with the anthology, especially because of the major price tag, and that was American Vampire Anthology issue 2. So this is hard to rate because there's so many stories, but honestly a lot of the stories kind of bored me. I think the thing I love and hate about American Vampire is that they delve into so many other character stories besides our main characters like Felicia and Pearl and Skinner. That's the characters I want to focus on. That's the story I love. But then when you go on sidetracks and talks about the other vampires, the other time periods, I understand where they're going with because you want to build this world. But for me, that's the part I'm less interested in. So the two stories I liked here, though, was obviously the first story where we get to see a bit of development with Pearl and the crew about what the last chapter is going to be about, which is going to take place in the 70s, and that's going to be coming back in 2017. And then the other story with Felicia, I feel like a lot of times with her character, they never focus on her being half vampire. They always kind of, it's like they make it like a dirty word, you know? They never talk about it. So it's kind of cool that they're showing that a little more. I always wanted to see more of her mythology of like, what is she now that she's half vampire? Does she age, you know, quicker? Does she age at all? Does she have any abilities? I feel like that's something they don't really explore in the other American Vampire comics that in one of the stories here they did. So I like that. But the other stories were kind of boring for me. And again, the hefty price tag brings it a little lower than I wanted it to be. Because this is a very big book. So for me, I would say only if you're a huge American Vampire fan, you should pick this up. But if you're trying to save money, I don't think it's a must-buy. I'm still very excited for 2017 for the book to come out again. Because I've missed it. It's been on hiatus for a while. Alright, so I gave that 2 stars. Moving on to number 19, which is Detective Comics issue 942. Disappointed to see this so low, but it's still the Monster Men. This is the last part of the Monster Men. Thank God it looks like it's the last part, and that means we're going to be getting the Victim Syndicate for the next issue of Detective Comics instead of this Monster Men. And yeah, I just wasn't feeling this. I feel like it should have been a miniseries for whoever liked the Monster Men, Hugo Strange, they could pick it up. But it really slowed down the momentum of the other Bat books because of this story, all of them. And I just feel like it wasn't a great replacement and not really a must-read. Artwork and art style I didn't really like too much. I didn't think the coloring really fit for the book. So yeah, overall, I gave Detective Comics issue 942 2 stars. I just didn't find a lot of enjoyment for it, and I think it's a very skippable issue. Alright, so moving on to number 18, which is Supergirl issue 2. Love this cover by Batgirl, I will say that, but the rest of the story, not so much. I don't really like the art style. I think it's like looks a lot like squares. I don't know. It's like very blocky, the style of artwork. Don't really like the coloring. Like I said, I feel like the tone is a little bit like a shade darker than I want Supergirl to be. And then the story with Cyborg Superman, and they're trying to bring in elements of the TV show with Cat Grant, but it's not really working. And then the high school element that doesn't really feel like a high school element because the school is like so scientific. So yeah, for me, I really don't care about Cyborg Superman being Kara's father, and I feel like with DC Rebirth, they were supposed to, you know, give more elements pre-New 52 Supergirl, but I feel like this is just continuing the same thing we had with New 52, especially bringing in Cyborg Superman as Kara's father again. So I'm not very interested in it. I guess the thing I was semi-interested with Cyborg Superman is maybe their relationship and Kara's relationship with Krypton. Other than that, I don't know what to do with this book. Like, I don't want to drop it because it's Supergirl, but at the same time, I'm just not really feeling the book. So, we will see. So, Supergirl issue 2 gets 2.5 stars. And that was number 18. Moving on to number 17, which this wasn't a bad book. It's just kind of there for me because I'm like not a huge fan of like the character, but I mean I like him, but I don't know if I needed to read a whole miniseries on this and it had to be this long. But that is Star Wars Han Solo issue 4, which the artwork is gorgeous for this book. That's something I have to say. Love the art style. It's the same person who does all the covers for Star Wars, and it's just, it works so well. The facial expressions, I guess the ships racing, it just looks beautiful, the art. So that's something I really was the reason why I was picking this up. But I don't know how many issues is this miniseries. I feel like next issue might be the last, but at the same time I don't know if I really care about the ending. That's the problem. There's not this continuous story where you're invested. You kind of know where it's going to end. You'll win the race or you won't win the race. So that's the reason why I feel a little less invested in this miniseries, but it's okay. I just feel like it didn't have to be as long as it has been. So Han Solo issue 4 gets 3 stars for me. Now it's number 17. Now we're moving on to number 16, which is Batgirl and the Birds of Prey issue 3, which I was very surprised to see this low. Usually it's like in top 5 or at least close to top 5 because I've been liking the Birds of Prey, but with this issue, I feel we have these Black Canary flashbacks, which I didn't feel was totally necessary, but I guess it's showing, hey, the Birds of Prey is a family, but we know that. Aspects I liked was definitely Barbara trying to hide her identity from Jim, always like that, and then explaining why she's doing it, and again, trying to give that establishment of Huntress, Black Canary, and Batgirl, I guess forming a team, but really forming a family. But then there's a lot of back and forth, like, oh, I trust you, Huntress, I don't trust you, Huntress, I trust you, Huntress, and that gets a little annoying. And I think the big part was taking me out of it. Well, there's 2 big parts. Story-wise, it's the villains that I really don't care about. Besides Oracle, I care about them, but I really don't care about the minions. And then also the art style. I know I like the flashbacks art style. I enjoyed that with Black Canary. I enjoyed that. But the other art style, I feel like facial expressions are weird and facial features are disproportionate in some of the pages. So that kind of takes me out of it. Coloring, I feel like could be a little better. Also, I feel like a darker tone than it has to be, like a 1 tone darker than it has to be. But yeah, Batgirl in the Birds of Prey issue 3 gets 3 stars. I kind of wish it was a little higher, but I do think the book has a lot of promise. So we're moving on to number 15, which is a book I was really looking forward to. I'm debating if I want to get the next issue or not, and that is Mosaic issue 1. I love that Marvel was kind of doing this sports book and, you know, talking about basketball and just introducing a new Inhuman. And I really liked the beginning. I liked that he wasn't a team player and all that. But then the powers got really confusing because he takes the personality of different people, but then he, like, takes over their body. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to keep that straight as this series keeps going on. The execution, I think, could have been a lot better. And then, yeah, the character development, I personally like it, but if you don't like those type of characters, I think it's hard to hook on. So that's the biggest thing. I kind of wish there was a bigger hook for this issue than there was, and that's why I'm kind of debating, do I want to get the next issue or don't I? So Mosaic issue 1 gets 3 stars, and that's number 15. So we're moving on to number 14, which is Robin Hood, I Love New York issue 5. And with this issue, well, I feel like with all the Robin Hood issues, they're very one-shotty. Like, they still have, like, kind of a continuous story of, like, alright, Robin Hood has to, like, save all these people in New York, and she's working with the police and all of that. And you have a cliffhanger that obviously goes into the next issue, but a lot of the other stories are, like, one-and-dones, which is weird, because I know it's a mini-series, but it kind of feels like an ongoing, and I want a little bit more of a continuous story for this book. But overall, I like the art. There's times where, like, the faces are on the side. I feel like profiles could be better there, but I love the coloring and line work. And inking for this book. So, this is a team-up between Hellchild and Robyn. If you like Hellchild, you'll enjoy this, I feel. I feel like Hellchild needs to be developed as a character more. I didn't really get that with that first miniseries as much as I wanted to. So, I'm hoping with her next miniseries, I'll care for that character a bit more. So, I gave this 3 stars, and that was number want to say 14. Let's see. Yes, that was number 14, and we're moving on to number 13, which is Jupiter's Legacy 2, issue 4. So Jupiter's Legacy, I felt like this issue was a bit slow until we actually got to the fight where people start dying, which really happens in Jupiter's Legacy a lot. We see our main character, Chloe's husband's father, die. You see them, like, start reconnecting in this issue, but he dies. And it's just a fight, I feel like. This is very much an action-heavy issue. Again, people die. But I wanted a little bit more meat to it. I wanted a little bit more story, more conversation. So I gave Jupiter's Legacy 2, issue 4, 3 stars, and that's number 13. Moving on to number 12, which is Grimm Fairy Tales Halloween Special 2016, which I liked it. I thought I had fun with it. If you're looking for some scary stories, one-shot type things that Grimm Fairy Tales is known for, you'll enjoy it. I actually enjoyed pretty much all the stories here, and I liked how they were connected. I liked that we actually get to see the characters we love from this universe, like Red Riding Hood, Robin Hood, and all those characters telling these stories that are very similar to, you know, either their abilities or their personalities. So I liked it. Again, I don't know if any of the stories blew me away, but I had fun with it, and if you're looking for something like horror-like, I'd pick it up. So I give it 3.5 stars. Alright, so we're moving on to, I believe, number 12. Yes, no, number 11. Which is The Shield, issue 3, which I wish I got this printed, but I'll get it printed next week. But I sort of didn't have the printed issue. But The Shield, I really like this book, but I hate how delayed it is. This is from Dark Circle, which is an imprint from Archie. And I really like it. You know, I like the character. I like the idea that she was from, like, the 1700s. And we've seen her, her origin story. Like, how she had these abilities, how she's kind of forgotten stuff. I like that. The villain could be a little bit better, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the story overall, but the delay is what really gets me. You kind of forget what happens, especially if you haven't reread issue 1 and 2. Like, for me, I read the issues when they came out. So, artwork's really good, though, but we gotta work on those delays. So, The Shield issue 3 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, so we are moving on to number 10, which is, surprisingly, this is so high, The Clone Conspiracy, issue 1, which actually was my favorite Marvel book this week, surprisingly. It was an okay issue. I guess I didn't read that many great Marvel books this week, but it was an okay issue, but the artwork was really good. I enjoyed how much that has improved. I think that's why it's a little higher than some of the other books this week, and it explains the clone conspiracy a little bit more, especially the backstory, actually, with the wonderful artwork by Ron Frenz, who is the artist of Spider-Girl, which, you know, is one of my, well, is my favorite series, and Ron Frenz is one of my favorite artists. So, I like that we got in the head of Gwen Stacy and figured out what these clones are all about. The Peter stuff, honestly, was the part where I thought I was lacking. Like, I was like, alright, we've seen all this before, and alright, we get it, new you, cool. So that's the part I felt like could have been a little better, some of the emotion I thought could have been better between, you know, the family, but overall it wasn't a bad issue, and I thought it was okay setup to the clone conspiracy, which I gave 3.5 stars, and that was number 10. We are moving on to number 9, which is Superwoman, issue 3, which maybe in another week also wouldn't have been as high as it was, because it does still feel very cluttered, but there's moments I do like about this book. I like Steel and Lana's interaction. I still really like Lana as a main character. I think she's a very good main character. But then again, like, I feel like the big thing that happens with this book is that they try to fit too much into it, page-wise and story-wise. So artwork-wise, it just feels so cluttered. Look, I mean, just look how many battles are on one page. But I will say it was a little bit more fluent with Lou Pacino's artwork instead of Jimenez's artwork. But yeah, you know, I like the story, though. We get to see a little bit of Lana as Lana, you know, getting her job and stuff like that. you know, her working with Steel, which was fun. But then the Lena stuff, especially after you watch Supergirl, which was such a good, you know, story with her, you know, being more of a morally gray character, but then here just kind of being the female version of Lex Luthor, I was a little disappointed with that. So there are definitely positives and negatives for this issue, but I want to like this book more because I loved issue 1. And I really like Lana as a lead. So Superwoman issue 3 gets 3.5 stars, and that's number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is Red Hood and the Outlaws, issue 3, which I think it slows down things a little bit more in this issue, but I still like this book a lot. I definitely think this is some of Lobdell's best writing, and the artwork fits so well. I love this kind of darker tone, and I mean, the artwork is just gorgeous. I will say, like I said, story kind of slows down a bit. It's Red Hood kind of figuring out his relationship with Black Mask, but also trying to be the good person, trying to team up with Artemis and trying to be good to Bizarro, who was kind of just born, and he wants to figure out more about this guy. And I love that Jason goes by like a stuffed animal for him. I thought that was really cute. So there's definitely glimmer of moments I like here, like again, Jason and Bizarro's relationship, even Artemis and Jason's relationship. But then some of the Black Mask stuff, I feel like that's when it slows down and why I couldn't get this to a 4 stars like it actually has been for the past couple of issues. So Red Hood and the Outlaws issue 3 gets 3.5 stars. And that was number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is Grimm issue 2, a book I've been pleasantly surprised by. You know, I am always on and off with Grimm, like the TV show. I always was rooting for Juliet because she was always the underdog and they never knew what to do with her character. And I remember the Hex and Beast season, I saw a lot of the episodes because I wanted to see what they would do with Juliet. And they just screwed it up. They screwed it up so bad. I mean, every episode they screwed it up even more until she died. And everyone was kind of happy because like, oh, finally she's gone. And then she came back. But here, what I love about this book is that it's actually doing the Hex and Beast story right and doing justice to Juliet's character. Artwork is really good too, even though I feel like the Juliet could look a little more like her actress. But I like the art style, and I like this inner fight that Juliet's going through for being the Hex and Beast, and the monologue is really good for that. The inner monologue is good, and I like this, like the actual story of her going against these other Hex and Beasts, trying to help her friend, and also trying not to talk to Nick. I really like this story, and I kind of wish they did it for the TV show because they kind of respect Juliet's character here more than they did on the show. So I give that 4 stars, and that was number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Wonder Woman issue 8. And I will say this is a filler issue, but this is how you do a filler issue. I'm never against filler issues. There's times where I really enjoy it because you get to see, you know, maybe a night out of town for the hero or just something fun just to see character moments. And sometimes, again, that is fun to see. Now here, we see character moments for Cheetah, for Barbara Ann, and for me, I've never been a huge Wonder Woman fan, never been able to connect to her until this run, which I really like, and I like the Finch's run too. But yeah, it's always been hard for me to connect with Wonder Woman and her villains. You know, I've never really cared for them, and I've never cared for Cheetah. But I'm caring for Cheetah here, and that's why I feel like this was very much a necessary fill-in. And yeah, it was a filler issue, like I said. But it was a necessary one. You learn more about her character, her motives, and why she's important to Wonder Woman's history and her present. So I really enjoyed this issue. This will be the new artist, I think, replacing Nicola Scott, which I really enjoy the art style too. Very solid issue, and if you want to learn more about Cheetah and maybe even like her character, I really recommend this book. So I gave it 4 stars. So moving on to number 5, which is a book I've been really enjoying, and that is Glitterbomb issue 2. This is an Image book, and we get to learn a little bit more about our main character and her abilities, or her demonness. She eats a shirt. That's a scene that happens here. And she's confused. She doesn't know what's going on. She knows she killed somebody, but she doesn't really know what to do, and she has one of her friends that, you know, has money, and probably one of her only friends, trying to help her out and almost kills him. And she's trying to figure out what is this monster inside, how is it related to Hollywood? And we even get to see a little bit more of that secondary character we saw in that first scene with her that is very similar to her, kind of a younger version of her going into Hollywood. How is she going to connect to our main character, we'll have to see. And the artwork is great. Really enjoy the art style. Has that great horror feel to it. And I love just the commentary it has on Hollywood and fame in general. So, Glitterbomb issue 2. Really fun book, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So, I gave this 4 stars, and that is my number 5. Moving on to number 4, a book I'm so glad to see in top 5 again. It was my pick of the week last time, and it's in top 5 still. Deathstroke issue 4, another good issue of Deathstroke. Now, I will say it falters a little in the end when they bring in Batman and they have this weird narration with like a journal-like thing going on. That's where it falters a bit. But the Rose stuff in this book, you know, analyzing her relationship with Deathstroke more, and again, the crazy relationship, the horrible relationship, but then also retconning a lot of the, yeah, and also bringing back a lot of the stuff that, not retconning, bringing back a lot of the stuff we really enjoyed from the pre-New 52 with Rose, and that being like her being trained by Nightwing and all that stuff. So I love that they're bringing back that importance of Rose, and I wonder, is she gonna go a hero route or not? That's something I am very curious about, and I love their relationship, and I hope they continue to make it a Rose and Deathstroke series, because I feel like that's where it's been at its best. So, and beautiful artwork. I mean, I've even said that when I didn't like Deathstroke. The action is so good. It's weird to actually show you this page. There's only one problem I had with this, is that her shoe looked like her foot was broken. That's the only problem I had with the art style, but everything else was good. It's just funny I opened up to that page, because this is just gorgeous artwork, other than her weird foot in that one panel. But great facial expressions and action here. So Deathstroke issue 4 gets 4 stars, and that was, I believe, number 4. So we're moving on to number 3. A book I'm very happy to see in top 5, because I don't think it has been, and that is Action Comics issue 965. I love having a book in the point of view of Lois and taking this time to tell her story going back to the Daily Planet and her trying to be the other Lois, which is a lot of fun. I will say the reason it's not higher is because there is a weird, I guess, timeline thing going on that we see Lois walk into Perry White's, you know, office, and then they tell this past storyline of like why she's going to the Daily Planet. I kind of wish they had that in the beginning and then told the Perry White thing. I understand it was for build up, but I didn't really think it worked here. But other than that, like, it was cool seeing again Lois and Lex interact, and then Lois trying to figure out the mystery, is the other Lois Lane alive or not. And then you know, for someone who's been enjoying Superwoman and Lana Lang as Superwoman, we have a cliffhanger of Lana visiting our Lois, our pre-New 52 Lois that we've had. So really excited about that. So it was a really fun issue, and I can't wait for the next issue to see more of Lois's story. I've always said that Lois Lane should have her own comic, and obviously she's had in the past, just a very long time ago, but I would like to see it in modern days, an ongoing Lois Lane comic. Would love to see that. So that was my number 3. Moving on to number 2, which I actually, and one of my books fell. And so my number 2 is Reborn issue 1. And I bought the convention exclusive from New York Comic Con, so I kept it in the backboard. But yeah, I love this issue. And I feel like with Millar, he does a really good job at first issues, like getting you hooked on to whatever story he's telling. But then, and I hope Reborn's not like this, but then it tends to falter in the end, where you're not interested, and it kind of, either it's too many issues or not enough issues. He just doesn't really know how to do endings, and I actually haven't found a book that I really like the ending of. Maybe Jupiter Legacy, the first one, I enjoyed the ending. I'm really trying to think, because once, you know, sometimes he has this kind of middle blues, ending blues, but the first issues are always really good. Hawk, again, Jupiter Legacy, Reborn, all these books. So I'm hoping Reborn will be a good first issue and continue to be good. So, but yeah, Reborn issue 1, really enjoyed. Artwork by Greg Capullo, really showing those facial expressions, and showing the life of these characters, which is great because this book is about death and life, being reborn. So it's about this older character who's afraid of death who doesn't believe in the afterlife, and she dies, and in a sad way. She also has dealt with death in her past. Her husband's died, her parents have died, and then she finds her dad in this other world, and she seems to be this kind of warrior that's needed in this world, which is kind of like this heaven for her, and it's this like cool medieval thing going on, which is cool, and I'm excited to see where that's going to go. And I just love the simplicity of storytelling about life and death, which is obviously seems very simple, but it's not. So I really love that story, and I really enjoyed Reborn. So Reborn issue 1 gets 4.5 stars, and that is my number 2. Very close to number 1, obviously. So let's move on to number 1. What was my pick of the week? And that was Kill or Be Killed, issue 3. A book I have to get printed. I keep forgetting to, but I love this book. I have to get them all printed. But yeah, this issue, it has to do with the aftermath of killing someone. But he's so, our main character is so much more calculated than you feel like he would be. You think he'd be freaking out, but it's more of him freaking out that he's afraid that he's gonna get caught, because he keeps looking at the news, keeps looking at it. But I love it's not obvious. He doesn't say, I think I'm gonna get caught. It's just more of those small moments where he keeps looking at the news and seeing if things change. But what I also liked about this issue is that it builds some of the supporting characters that you actually like them now. Kiro as a character is like, oh, she just feels bad for him. But now you understand the relationship a bit more, and it's more complicated than that. You get a history for it. But I love this narration. That's what gets you, is that hook of all of the great dialogue you're getting in this book, and again, great inner monologue of this very complicated character, this character you can't trust. He's an untrustworthy narrator, which you don't get to see in comics that often. You see it in novels a lot, but in comics you don't get to see it as often. So it's cool to kind of get this character and not know if this is the true story. Maybe a lot of things that are happening or his tellings of it. Maybe this guy he killed is not who he thinks he is. Because in the end, it's kind of like this happy ending. He's like, oh wow, he really was a jerk. More than just a jerk he was in childhood, because he was a horrible person, but he's even worse. So, but maybe it's just his mind telling him all these things. And he even says that, and I love the line where he says that we always edit our thoughts, that way we're the better person in the end. So again, there's just so many great, awesome lines in this issue. A lot of great monologue for this character that just gets in the head of our character, which is some of my favorite type of storytelling. So, loving Kill or Be Killed. Great issue, and I can't wait to read more of this. If you're not reading this book, it's really well done. One of my favorite Image books right now. So pick it up. I gave it 4.5 stars, and that is my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links to my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.